Okay, welcome to another episode of The Voices, Dominican Voices of Now. And I have to say, this one is very special to me because, of course, like every guest we have here, it is Dominican descendant. And but the funny thing, even I live in New York, I met this guy in the Dominican Republic when both of us were visiting there. I will give you a little preview. This guy is the co-founder of Bladar Film, which is a huge production company. Also, he is the founder of a brand called Generation Iron. And we have to talk about this because it has different things, including a series of documentary I've been becoming added. Some of them, they're being in the top #1 in Apple TV. Welcome, my friend. Edwin Mejia, it's a pleasure finally have you here.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be on and always happy to see you, of course.
You are a truly friend. You are, I have to say to you, #1, I'm very proud of you, very thankful. You are always there when I can reach with any doubt about a documentary or whatever. And you are the proof you can make new friends when you move to another country. And I have to say this in person, live here in this recording. So I'm very happy you are around.
I really appreciate that. I've always been very appreciative of our relationship and our friendship and seeing you and what you've done over the years working through CNN and obviously in fashion. And the way I met you, too, was pretty inspiring, too, because you remember I was invited to premiere Jeremy Scott in the Dominican Republic at Blue Mall for the Cine Global Film Festival, I believe. And that was a special moment because obviously me being of Dominican heritage, right? First, I guess, second generation in the States, being able to go back to the motherland, so to speak, right, to premiere this movie was a moment that I never thought would happen, to be honest with you, but it was kind of like a dream come true, because I was able to have family and friends come to the theater, see the movie that I was able to produce, and it was a full circle moment for me.
I can tell from your voice and how you express, you have like you are quite like moved by it. Probably this happened to you a lot. So I used to curate that fashion section of that film festival. So always I pushed for the movies were coming out. This one was like fresh from the oven. And always I pushed the people, it's interesting if you can bring the producer or the director. We achieved it twice. And when I reach back to them, what we having? Do you got Jeremy Scott? Yes. How about somebody from the movie? And Taina, the real friend of mine there, say, of course, also the producer is coming. He's Dominican. I was so excited because, you never expect behind a big thing like that, not to diminish our nationality, but it was a very pleasant surprise. Like, oh my God, it's a Dominican guy behind. I get so motivated about that. And I was so excited, like, wow. And look what happened. You couldn't go to the Dominican Republic, see family. How that felt, how you feel? Do you dream with that when you were growing up here as a Dominican descendant? Like, I want to go back to my country and show something.
I never thought about that moment in that way because, being, I guess, second generation and growing up here in New York with a mother and a father that only spoke Spanish, for me, it was like I wanted to fit in. I wanted to get an education, right? Go get a good job, paying job, help my parents, help my family, be able to continue to progress. But I never pictured myself going back to the Dominican Republic that way. Okay. I've always been to the Dominican Republic, going there as a kid in my summers, of course, spending my summers there, having special summers and learning people, the culture. That was something that I appreciated, but I never saw myself going back.
Yes, so let's talk about you was born here and in the Bronx, and your parents came from the Dominican Republic. And how important from then was like, you have to attend a school, you have to do better than us. How was that at home?
Yeah, I had a very strict household. My mother was very strict. Well, she was the disciplinary person in the house. Growing up in the Bronx, I remember Fox Street, South Bronx. I was born there. Um, it was a pretty interesting childhood growing up there. I grew up with pretty much all my family members on the same block. My uncle started bringing everybody over. But, I think by the time I turned 12, I think 11 or 12, I moved to Queens. And growing up, I think that I had a really great community there in the Bronx. But once I moved to Queens, I felt like I was in a new environment. I was raised around kids that were Italian, Irish. It was like, Queens is a very big melting pot, right? So
Mhm.
it changed a lot of things for me. And then ever since then, I realized that I felt a little bit out of place, right? I didn't necessarily have my Dominican community around me all the time. I went to high school. I went to an all boys high school, Holy Cross Essex. Then I went to college. I went to Place University at the time. And then, I played baseball in college, which was what I grew up doing. And I had cousins that played minor league baseball, so I really loved playing baseball. And then long story short, I got injured my sophomore year. I couldn't, I got tendonitis in my elbow. I couldn't really play that much. But long story short, I started doing internships in finance, and always wanted to work in finance because I wanted to make money. And I went to school. The first thing I wanted to do, and I started doing internships, took advantage of working downtown there by Wall Street. And, Pace University has 2 campuses. One of them is by City Hall, and that's kind of how I started to learn about finance and Wall Street and working in that world. And then in senior year, 6 months before I graduated college, I got an offer to work as an analyst at Lehman Brothers at one of the investment banks in New York, which I took the offer. I remember the day that to me was like a dream come true, because all I wanted to do is make money and help my family, help pay our mortgage. At the time where I know we were facing a lot of different challenges as a family, but it was interesting. It was a really surreal moment for me, going through 15 interviews to get one job at an investment bank, right? And then that's how my journey started. And I started working in finance.
Yeah, but then I remember when we start our friendship, and I approached to you with this documentary about the Dominican models, and I expressed to you how they felt coming to this fashion world. They felt diminished, and you said, "You know what? I understand that because I feel like that. I have to fit in." Told me a little bit about that.
Yeah, for me, I started to realize that I needed more of the artistic ambition to really grow inside of me. I started feeling that I needed something more than just finance, and I started working in the TV film industry in 2009, 2010. And I started meeting a lot of great people here like Calixto and the New York Latino Film Festival. I started meeting a lot of people in the TV film world at Sony, and I started producing documentary work for music artists, music studios in New York with my business partner now, Vlad Yudin, who's my director and producing partner. And when you approached me with the story on the Dominican models, it was something that I really identified with, because always felt that I was out of place, or not out of place, but I always felt that I didn't have somebody that looked like me, right? In the world that I wanted to be in the world that I worked in, which was at the time was finance, and then it was entertainment, film and TV. And, at the time, Carlos, entrepreneurship wasn't a thing. Entrepreneurship was not a cool thing. I remember there was not, you see the Gary V's of the world, or those people didn't exist. So for me, I never really had a role model in that world. So leaving finance, a secure job in the banking world, to go into entertainment, my mother, my family, friend, they all thought I was crazy. Yeah. But that type of story with the Dominicanas themselves, that story on the models, I identified a lot with, because I didn't have a role model, somebody that looked like me in that same field. So I said, that's a story I should be able to tell, that I want to tell. And I love telling stories about people that have, I would say, voices, right, that are not strong enough or go far enough to tell those stories. And for me, it was a really, really surreal moment. And then in meeting you, of course, and talking about the story really brought it all together. And I was very excited about it.
Yes, you mentioned something very important, representation. And that's the main purpose of the voices, because maybe if you were a little boy and you saw someone Dominican looking like you in the entertainment industry, let's say black folks, kids, they have like a Spikey Lee, which is an Oscar winner. It's like, wow, I know I want to do that. I have a role model. So I think so. Beside baseball players and merengueros and bachateros, which are very proud, we have to think a little beyond that. Like especially kids has a lot of information, and they need to see them represented in the minimum, like Dominican, look like me, and being a feel is another one, always project me. So your dream was to become a baseball player?
My dream as a kid was to become a baseball player, but my second dream was to work in Wall Street and work in finance, because I knew that that was a life that I wanted for myself, meaning I wanted to have comfort. I wanted to have, the flexibility of time and money and all those things that, obviously bring you, just facilitating those things for you in your life. I mean, look, for me, to be honest with you, I wanted to have a nice car. I wanted to have a new apartment. I moved out when I was very young, 22, 23, working on Wall Street. I bought my first apartment at 25. I had a brand new car. I had a chauffeur home. I had 5-star dinners every night working on Wall Street. It was a pretty interesting experience, although I didn't have a life. I worked there 12, 14-hour days. Those are the things that nobody talks to you about. You work all these hours, and you just all you do is just eat, sleep, work, eat, sleep, work. No social life. You don't see any family. You don't travel anywhere. After a while, I didn't really feel happy with myself. I didn't feel fulfilled. And that moment, I remember waking up one day, I was stressed out in the shower. I said to myself, I didn't want to do this anymore. I wanted to do a little bit more. I wanted to be more creative, create something more tangible with my life. And luckily for me, I met a good friend of mine who I also studied with, who ended up going to film school, Vlad, and we started producing together. And, we started producing a music doc, and then we started producing new films. And then in 2013, we did this movie, 2013, 2014, called Generation Iron. And that movie, essentially what it did was it opened up the floodgates for us in the world. I mean, we did a movie, it was a big film that we did with Arnold. Mickey Rourke narrated the film. And then we had another feature film called Last Day of Summer, which we sold to Showtime. So we really realized that we could create a business model out of it. So what I learned from finance is that I was able to bring on the business, the business side and the business plan, and be able to create a sustainable business, right?
Yeah.
And then that was during the time when Netflix was really small. People didn't really work with Netflix at that time. I started creating a relationship with Netflix at that time. So we started creating a lot of projects with Netflix in 2014. And that grew into a relationship, which later on, 10 films that we've produced on Netflix, Hulu, ESPN, and we've created a very diverse sports TV film catalog now that, extends to over 30, 40 films. So we're very, very excited about that. And so we pivoted, the model of filmmaking where you make a movie and then you sell it to a studio. Those days, still exist, but they're not as the way they used to. Distributors aren't the same. We wanted to take the model, Carlos, of we want to own our proper channels, our distribution channels, and we want to have our own accounts with Amazon, Apple Movies, Google Play, and service those accounts. So we started doing that very early on. And I guess the fruits of those labors, right, have kind of evolved for us, and we've been able to really grow our content catalog. And that's where we are today, where we launch with two companies, the Vlad company, which is a production distribution entity, and then you have Generation Iron, which is a digital media publishing platform for strength sports, fitness, bodybuilding, and health entertainment.
Yeah. That was something I want to mention for people that are watching or listen to us. Is amazing because when I start watching because of you, you open and the company and the subject open a world I didn't knew was existing. Of course, we know bodybuilding. Generation Iron started as a, following the life of these big muscle guys, which are bodybuilders. Do you think picking that niche and that no, how do you say this? That story was not told. Like, it even was not put in the mind of anyone. Was important for you guys? Like you discover something. This is new. This will make an impact. Nobody's talking about this.
Yeah, look, I mean, when we started talking about doing a film on bodybuilding, I thought it was a little crazy. I'm like, who's going to watch this? But then we met the original producer of the big famous movie Pumping Iron, the movie that introduced Arnold, to the world. And he started producing this film with us, and it slowly started to become the sequel of Pumping Iron in many ways.
Okay.
We produced this movie. It was very, very insightful. It created more insight about just bodybuilders and that they're not just like these athletes who are just dumb and picking up equipment and just working out in the gym. And, there's more of a science to it. There's more of a discipline to it. And being able to entertain an audience with that film was really key. I mean, that film really changed everything for us because it was in the top 5 highest grossing documentary at the box office in 2014. I mean,
which is not easy.
It's not easy, and it was one of the
documentaries. It's like,
it was probably one of the top selling sports films for several years. So we beat out many studios those few years, and the film made us realize there's an opportunity to create a business on social media and a business for content on fitness, strength sports. So we essentially said that niche is a niche that we can grow, right? As opposed to trying to compete against these studios that you're not going to really compete against because you need a lot of marketing dollars. So we really created a platform for fitness, which is Generation Iron. And we used a platform to market our content, our catalog, our films, our movies. And that has now grown to over 2 million readers monthly on GenerationIron.com, social media platforms. You have millions of followers and subscribers. And that's where we started to flourish because we realized that in order to compete, we needed to have our own platform to market from. And that's how we kind of leveraged, the success of Generation Iron to now over 40 titles, ranging from health and fitness and strength sports and bodybuilding.
Congratulations. You really established a global brand because I know you have like gyms, places too now.
Yeah, so it's grown and evolved to also franchising. So we have franchising in gyms now. We've launched a gym in Dubai recently. We launched in New York. We're about to launch in Texas and Florida. And then internationally, we're in process of opening in India and in the Netherlands as well, which I just got back from. So it's like I said, I mean, I think that the business continues to evolve for me as a fellow Dominican. I think that I am very, very interested in not only being more as a mentor and working with other fellow Dominicans and being able to help grow awareness for not only content, but health and fitness. It's become a passion for me. And as you know, fitness has now grown worldwide. It's growing every day. Everybody wants to be in the gym. Everybody wants to be training and working out, and I think you see that. And I think that's a part of what we want to continue to contribute and create content for.
For sure, because the audience already is conscious about how you can prevent illnesses if you work out, if you eat healthy, if the wellness is good. So going a little bit back, how you met and how you and your partner ended up producing the documentary of Jeremy Scott.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy Scott was an interesting opportunity for us because we met Jeremy early on before he joined Moschino. So we've known Jeremy for quite some time. We were always I would say we were big fans of his because if you remember the sneakers, he had the big Adidas sneakers. So we've always loved Jeremy since then. And we met him and Jeremy and I we've always connected with him. We love his stories. Vlad, our director, said, this is a really impactful story that can really make a big difference. This is a guy that grew up in Kansas City on a farm, right? Grew up with very little resources. He took inspiration from his grandmother in terms of patterns and designs. And I remember him telling me how he was bullied. He was bullied all through high school, felt different, felt like he could fit in. And it's a story that I really identified with as well, right? And someone that was able, it was essentially a all-American rags to riches story about this guy who grew up on a farm, you know, and essentially achieved the American dream. And he became the Moschino creative director, merging with massive influencers and celebrities from Rita Ora, Miley Cyrus, Katy Perry, A$AP Rocky. I mean, all these amazing celebrities. And then we loved this story. We said we had to tell that story to the world.
Yeah.
And
the
that's
documentary is amazing. And you really guys had access to everything, I remember. And you're still friends with him, no?
Yeah, we are still friends with him. He just left Moschino, as you know. I mean, I don't know if you heard that, but he recently just left Moschino. We had an amazing premiere, Carlos, at the Paris Theater here in New York. For Fashion Week, we had a premiere in Hollywood Boulevard at the Chinese Theater where we shut down Hollywood Boulevard. It was pretty amazing. Probably the most press I've ever seen in my life. So it was a really great experience. And then being able to work with Funa at Netflix at the time, who is a huge partner of ours, that movie went really far and then also made the list of like top 10, top 5, top 10 best fashion docs as well, which was really, really exciting for us to see that.
Great. So let's talk about Dominica. So I have my own conclusions as a youth. I live in New York, and of course I became like an immigrant late in life. But you learn the difference between the Dominicans living in the Dominican Republic and us. We have great things, and we always are proud of being Dominicans and proud of our hospitality. We have a good heart. But what advice you will give you to the Dominicans want to make it, want to succeed, based on our behavior, let's say in that way?
Well, I think the number one advice I would give anybody, especially fellow Dominicans or, first or second generation Dominicans, is find a mentor, talk to people, find people that have been or are in the same industry or the position that you want to be in, or people that can identify with you, whether they're Dominican or not. You can find those voices, right? Or those people in those positions that can meet with you over coffee, meet with you just to give you some more advice. I think learning from them is key. And I think now you have people that could be mentors, Carlos, not like before, where those mentors to me did not exist. And I think a lot of people could feel the same way. But now you have this new generation, right, of second or third, or even first generation Dominicans that can actually look to, these mentors and people in fashion, entertainment, TV, film, the sciences, even doctors. I mean, Dominicans are accomplishing so much in this world. It is unbelievable. I mean, I have cousin who's also one of the chairman of the theater wing here in Broadway. Mejia Sosa, designers. There's all these people that people did not have access to before, did not know that existed. They do exist. And I think now more than ever, expressing yourself and showing your Dominican heritage is a very powerful.
Switching a little bit, a more like easy conversation. You've been shooting so many Generation Idol around all those big guys. Are you like obsessed with the gene, or you are like, okay, I'm taking it easy, I'm not bodybuilding? How is that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the reason why we do a lot of films like this in this world, number one, there's a lot of big voices that don't get that attention like they deserve. Like I said, I mean, they may be well known in the fitness world, in the bodybuilding, strength sports world, but they're not well known in the greater communities worldwide and other places that people can tune into. But fitness is kind of a niche in many ways as well when it comes to storytelling. So for us, I mean, I always find it interesting and very fascinating to tell those stories. Sometimes just because they're a bodybuilder or a strongman or strength sports athlete doesn't necessarily mean they're not doing other things, right? There's strength sports athletes and bodybuilders that are business owners, entrepreneurs. I mean, they're doing different things, and they have really great stories. But they're also, the other big reason why we take on those stories is because you get to learn so much about them in terms of, health, nutrition, dieting, training, all those things that really go towards your health and longevity. And I
Yeah.
think that's what we really love the most on a publishing platform, which is Generation Iron.
Oh my God, Edwin. I feel bizarre like interviewing you, but went well, I guess, and I really like it.
No, I appreciate you interview. I was looking forward to it. I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan. Obviously, more not only that, I consider you're a good friend, and for us, I mean, and to see you what you're doing and what you've done over the years and creating your own product and brand as well, and Bergdorf Goodman. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a huge accomplishment, and I think that's something that
thank
serves as inspiration for many people too. So,
thank you. As I say in the beginning, your friendship like give me the confidence, and I used to turn and ask questions to you. Anyway, see you in a little because Edwin and I were going to have coffee for
yeah,
real. We were we've been postponing this coffee, so finally
quite a
today.
guy.
Well, thank you, Edwin. Thank you very much.
Thank you
And
for having
see
me,
you
Carlos.
at 20 in Mejia House here in New York
Okay,
in the big event of The Voice.
I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you.